Alright guys, welcome back. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. Here recording another episode for you. I mostly felt a little weird about the more recent recording I did that was kind of about goal setting. And it kind of went in a weird direction. So that's leading me to post this. Just because I was so off topic. So I watched something last night that I kind of wanted to talk about today because I thought it was pretty cool. So let me see. It was on YouTube. I've probably talked about this podcast before. Well, excuse me. You'll have to excuse me. I'm tired. I'm yawning. It's 7:19 p.m., guys, and usually it's earlier. So just needed a little break, a little fresh air. Came outside again, but it's night. So if you check out episode number 91 on the channel that's called Ashley Gavin, it's called Ali Colbert Says Holes is a Lesbian something, and the thumbnail says episode number 91. Ali Colbert is a tomboy gay turned femme, like kind of as a question mark. The name of the podcast is called We're Having Gay Sex. I know that's, well, it's, I guess I'm not trying to like hate, but the thumbnail says like we're, I guess, but I think they say we're, because they use it kind of as a joke, like we're having gay sex with this person, like, so that episode would have been we're having gay sex with Ali Colbert. And then they basically talk about, like, what I wanted to talk about was like the stuff they were saying about like gender, but they talk about in the podcast just other general stuff. Usually they just check in. They usually have like a format where they have one guest or maybe a couple guests. It's Ashley, it's a co-host, and then it's the guest, or if there's like a couple guests or like a group or something, like it's basically those two and the guests. And before that it was Gara and Ashley and the guest. I don't know, like I was kind of like, I liked Gara, just, I mean, I don't dislike the current co-host, but I was kind of like, I don't know, there was just something about her personality that was kind of like, or their personality that was kind of just, it kind of piqued my interest. And so I kind of was sad to see Gara go off the podcast, but she does have her own Instagram and all that other kind of stuff. And they're comedians, so it's funny. There's some funniness. I must say this episode wasn't like the other ones so much because, you know, they got a little serious in parts of it too, but that's not bad. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying there was anything wrong about that or terrible to see, but I watched it, but I guess you can hear it too. And there was nothing that I found like terrible. I'm not knocking it. I'm actually recommending it for people who are likely, you probably don't want to be too young. I mean, they are talking about sexual content, but it's also on YouTube. So, I mean, I guess, you know, what do they say? Viewer discretion advised. I can't really make those calls. I mean, when I was like younger than 18 and like a teenager, I was watching all kinds of stuff, and I didn't even have, I don't think I really even had YouTube. And even if I did, like, the early stages of YouTube were like music videos, so I was just like watching music videos. I remember watching Yahoo Music videos, like, and you know, we had like satellite TV, and that was like the big thing. So yeah. So I don't think we really had a lot of queer content online like that. But I was watching other stuff, other adult stuff, but it wasn't too adult. I remember I used to listen to Loveline on K-Rock. It would come on late. I think it would come on from like 9 to midnight or something like that. And me and my friend, or maybe 10 to midnight, weekday evenings or a couple weekday evenings or something. And me and one of my friends used to listen into the calls. It was basically people having some kind of relationship or sexual issue that they'd call. And then Dr. Drew was the doctor. And then I think it was like Adam Carolla, or like, I don't remember who it was. It was like some other kind of comedian type of guy. But anyways, but yeah, so this episode of We're Having Gay Sex on Ashley Gavin's website, YouTube channel, it overall, I mean, I could maybe give a review about it, but I don't want to spoil it either. Like, they were kind of talking about like gender related ideas and thoughts that they kind of had and noticed when they were like younger, and how they came to be how they are now, if they're more masc, if they're more femme, if how they feel about themselves, and these are all like adults now, but they were kind of talking about their journey. And so they all identify differently. As far as, I guess, Ashley and Allie identify as Caucasian lesbian females with she her pronouns, but Ashley does usually say that she's more kind of masculine presenting, and then so does, I guess, Allie was saying that like she used to be way more masculine presenting, and then is kind of a little more on the STEMish side. She's kind of more femme a little bit, but kind of more on the STEMish side. She's saying she feels like she's kind of more like femme externally, but like internally kind of like her personality is kind of more masculine. And then I'm probably going to get the identifying information incorrect about the co-host, who identifies as, doesn't really use, I guess, uses they them pronouns, and then as a joke, kind of lets the audience pick their gender of the week. And then I think identifies as a Caucasian dyke, bisexual lesbian, or something like that. So that's the identity. Those are the identities of the people. And they were kind of talking in this episode about, experiences that they had, like maybe with clothing, or experiences that they had maybe with like Allie was saying she had an experience where, when she was like young, when the movie Holes came out. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Holes with, I think Shia LaBeouf was in it. But she said that she wanted to be one of those boys in the Holes movie. And, for one of her birthdays, she got like a shovel or something like that, and used to be like really into pocket watches. And Ashley was saying how, as like a 5-year-old, she had like a little tuxedo at one point, and then was, usually identifying with a lot of male characters in shows and stuff, because, she was thinking about like how to get girls and stuff like that. And then the co-host was mentioning that they had some experiences where they were saying that they kind of wanted to be like, as like they were joking with friends as kids, saying like, when I'm an old woman. So they said, when I'm an old woman, I want to be a little boy. And then somebody said something kind of like, oh, that's messed up, or something like that. Like they were kind of like negative about that explanation. Excuse me. And so they kind of had a lot of I guess like stressful situations. And I've maybe talked about this on this podcast before, but like when I was younger, I mean, I would say when I was younger, I don't know when gender became like a noticeable thing to me. I mean, I have a brother who I'm super close with. We're just 2 years apart in age and had a lot of the same friends growing up. And I remember usually hanging out with him and our neighborhood friends or church friends, and they tend to be boys. My brother didn't really hang out with a lot of females. He mostly hung out with guys, and I did too. And I was never really like rejected by guys, and I played sports. Like, I wasn't like one of the best at the sports, but I mean, I was good enough that like I was better than some of the boys who maybe never played, or like I had enough skills that I could like score points. Like basketball, I'd make some baskets or some good passes, or like soccer, I'd score some points, or like hockey or football, scoring touchdowns and stuff, and like goals, and like I would be good enough that like, I would score on occasion. I wasn't like terrible, but I wasn't one of the best either, and I wasn't like super competitive. I just kind of played because like, well, this is what all my friends are doing. So something that I noticed was like, there was a part of me that was kind of more emotional, that liked to kind of talk about feelings and things like that. And I noticed, the boys around me never really wanted to do that too much. I had like some male friends when I was like a little bit older. Like, I think one of my closest friends, a boy, well, when we were kids, he was a boy, from like second grade to like seventh grade or so. He was quite femme, quite sensitive, very kind of like, his mother was like really involved in his life, and he was like besties with his mom, and like really close, with his sister, and like his sister had a lot of female friends, and so he grew up around a lot of females, and like didn't really have a lot of like masculine kind of interests, I guess, if you would call it that, stereotypical masculine interests, like to the point that, we used to have this parent-teacher conference meeting, and then when you were a kid, I think if you were sixth grade and up, you could go kind of like hang out outside, and like, so we would go mainly to hang out with our friends, or like use the payphone out front and like call our friends who were at home, and like, we would just go to like hang out with our friends like on a Thursday. I think it was like the first Thursday night of the month or something like that, and we just go and like kick it with our friends. And like one of my friends, he never came to anything, never came to church, never came to sports leagues, nothing like that. And then one day, like, I was talking to him. I used to talk to him on the phone all the time, and he was like, yeah, I got some shoes with these spikes on the bottom. And I remember like, oh yeah, why don't you come to the parent-teacher conference meeting, and then we'll like hang out and I'll get to see the shoes or whatever. And so I went and we hung out. And we're like out on the backfield. It's kind of dark, and like I remember him showing me his shoes, and I was like, oh yeah, they're soccer cleats, like, and I thought he knew because I met him when I was in second grade playing soccer, and he was like maybe sixth grade at this point. And then the other boys see him like, why are you wearing soccer cleats? And like that's the only time he ever wore those. But I was nice about it because I was like, oh, those are really cool, they're soccer cleats. But like I knew what they were, but I wasn't like gonna tease him, like, but at the same time it was like, okay, that's a little weird, especially because he didn't really play soccer or any sports or anything like that. But then he got really good at like running and started running a lot, and so he wasn't really great at sports with like ball handling and stuff like that, but then he got really fast at running. So even when he played basketball or hockey or soccer, like people would pick him on the team because he was so fast, but he had like no real coordination with the ball. But it's like if you give him the ball, like it's very unlikely that like he would like sprint like down the field, or like sprint on the court, and like if he made the basket or not, whatever. But people could see he was putting in effort, he was trying really hard. So like he would play sports with other people, but he was just like super fast to a point where it's like, why are you that fast? Like it was just a little concerning. But like he'd run like as fast as he possibly could down the basketball court without traveling, and then just totally like miss the basket. So it's kind of like, it was cool though, because it's like, hey, at least he's trying. And I think people kind of, you know, gave him props for that, because, like, you know, you want someone on your team who's not going to be just, like, you know, not trying, or, like, even if they're not good, like, you know, you want him to at least, like, put in the effort. And so he did that, and he kind of gained a lot of respect, because he had a reputation for so long of being kind of like I don't think people cared that he kind of had some effeminate kind of traits. I think it was more that, like, he didn't really do anything that a lot of the other guys could really relate to. Like, he was into, you know, he just was kind of like on the, I guess, stereotypical geeky nerdy end of things. But back when I was, like, younger, that, like, people who were into, like, computers and all that kind of stuff weren't, like, necessarily considered cool. Like, it wasn't, like, a cool thing to, like computers and, like, know about them and, like, know about, like, techie stuff and, like, you know. But like, he was really into manga, really, like, when it was, like, still only in, like, Japanese and hadn't been translated into English yet. Like, he was into manga and the anime. He would go to Japanese school. After our school hours, he would go to Japanese school. I guess he didn't get along there. He said that he used to kind of get picked on there. But then later on, he started, you know, talking to girls more, and girls kind of liked him because he was kind of like, he had kind of like sensitive qualities and stuff. So he got along good with girls and that kind of thing. And so I hung out with him, like, all the time, but I kind of hung out with everybody too. So it's like I would hang out with still, like, my brother's kind of crowd that was kind of like the jock guys, and then I'd hang out with kind of like the stereotypical, like, nerdy guys, and I'd hang out with, like, the kind of more, like, prissy girl people, or, like, the other people who had, like, no friends. I kind of just hung out with everybody. And I kind of, like, was a little bit, like, other than the, like, the super femme women, I was kind of like, or girls, because we were all, like, young at that point. I don't want to say if they were women, because they weren't even, like, adults, but I mean, other than the super femme ones, I didn't really fit in with them too much. But, you know, I fit in a little bit because a lot of them were kind of musical, and, like, I kind of played guitar, even though I wasn't, like, into singing too much and all that kind of stuff. But I was kind of, like, really into music, and, like, and, you know, a lot of them, they had, like, little boyfriends and stuff that were my friends. So it's like I interacted with them. But they were probably the people I interacted with the least. Just because I didn't have so much in common. And then they also kind of didn't treat people too nicely either, that, like, almost everybody. So it was kind of hard for me to really kind of vibe with them, and I didn't really tend to really, like, enjoy being around them all the time. But I don't think they really teased me. They weren't nice to each other. They weren't nice to anybody. So it's like, they weren't, like, super mean, but, like, you know, they were just kind of a little bit bratty, I'd put it that way. And then yeah, so I was saying all that to talk about kind of, like, when it came to, like, me kind of recognizing things about gender, it was usually kind of an interesting thing early on, because earlier on I would be kind of like when I was really young, like, I think third grade or so, maybe, I don't remember too much around second grade, but I remember third grade for sure, because I think my third grade picture has me with just, like, you know how you have those, like those Hanes t-shirts that are just, like, classic t-shirt with, like, a color, like, blue or green or whatever the, like, solid color is. And I had one from my second grade soccer team, when we were, I guess the team was called the Orioles, even though we were a soccer team, but we were yellow. And then we just had, like, plain Hanes shirts like that, and I wore that shirt, just a plain shirt, for my picture. And I remember I had this, like, sweater on that my mom had wanted me to wear, this, like, sweater that had all, you know, it was like the 90s, so we had those, like, knit sweaters that had, like, the different, like, designs. It almost looked like they were pixelated almost. I don't know how else to describe it. It had, like, these they almost looked like Christmas sweaters all the time, but they were, like, not, this one wasn't Christmassy. It was, like, I think it was like purple and pink and had some like neon green and like, it was nice, but it was still kind of like, I remember having like a style that I wanted, like certain fitted things. And then my hair was pulled back into a small ponytail. And I just usually just wore jeans, sneakers. They weren't like fitted jeans. They weren't, I don't know. I didn't really have much of a figure, so I don't know what the style of jeans was back then, but, yeah. And then I remember, I'm just going by my pictures. I remember my 4th grade picture, or maybe my 4th grade picture. I had a purple t-shirt on that had like these like kind of pink and yellow and different color like hearts, and then I had like a couple braids in my hair, and then like a purple bow. It was like one of those headbands with a bow on it, and I wasn't even smiling in that picture, I don't think. The 3rd grade picture I was smiling, but I remember I had taken off my sweater, and I remember my parents were like, well, why didn't you wear your sweater? Like, that was the only nice thing that I had on that day, but I didn't wear it because I think I'd been like playing at recess or something and just took it off because it was hot, and then like I just never put it back on for the picture specifically. Yeah, and then I think from that point on, like around 5th or 6th grade, we started wearing uniforms. So I remember having a uniform. They had what was called like the Peter Pan style. It was kind of like a button up, the female button up that had like a collar that was like kind of a rounded little collar, and then otherwise you would have like the polo, like the classic polo t-shirt with like the 2-3 buttons on top, and then like khaki, like kind of like you could wear like slacks or like chinos or like shorts that were kind of like dress shorts, and then we had chapel dress on Fridays. And so I hated the Fridays, but I was still going to church all the time, so I remember I would always still wear dresses. I never really liked wearing dresses, but it was just kind of like I went to church so much that it was like I dressed how I needed to dress. And my parents always made sure I had certain clothes, but there was a certain point in my life where you could kind of tell I was just always wearing the same thing. And I remember one of my friends, like, I was probably in high school at this point, where we had to go to like, I think we went to like a taping of like So You Think You Can Dance or something, one of those kind of shows where like Busta Rhymes was like he was like performing or whatever, and then like as for the audience that was there, they'd have like performers that were musicians. So Busta Rhymes was there that time, I remember. So I remember we had to dress a certain way, and so I had like a shirt that was like a female kind of shirt, like a dress kind of blouse that like I wore that, and that's the first time I actually wore that in public around my church friends, because this wasn't a church event. This was like something we were doing for like, we got like money for fundraising if we got like a group of say 15 or something. So the youth leader got a bunch of us together, or the collegiate leader or whatever age group leader got us together to go out to like Hollywood, and like we lived near Hollywood. It wasn't like that far from Hollywood. And then we went out there and went to watch the taping to get the little money for the whatever we were saving the money for. I don't remember what the purpose was, but yeah, we would do fun events like that instead of just doing like car washes and things, because that would be like exhausting and hard to get people there. So we did that, and we basically yeah, I remember I was wearing that outfit. It was kind of more femme looking outfit, and I did my hair like femme style and stuff. And one of my friends was like, why are you, one of my church friends was like, oh, like you actually have some really cute outfits, and like you look really good in that, and like why don't you ever wear that kind of stuff like to church? You always wear like the same thing, And I was kind of like, I never really had an answer for that, but in my head I was like, because I don't care. Like, I don't care what I wear to church, because you're like forcing me to wear dresses, so I'm just gonna wear the same one for like a couple years in a row until my parents get sick of it and they're like, we're going shopping for some church clothes again. Like, I never like was really interested in going out on my own to like buy my own clothing, to have my own like style, because like it kind of helped to have uniforms at school, because I could kind of dress a little on the mask presenting side, and like nobody would really care because I was wearing like slacks and like, you know, like a polo shirt. That's mostly what I wore, or like hoodies, and like I'd buy them a little bit big. I think back then I was like a size 16 with like, you know, and then at a certain point I was wearing like 30s, you know, when I got a little bit older. And like I just remember, because like we wore the same thing every day for like years, so I remember those sizes. And then yeah, I basically wore the same type of clothing. And then when we were older, we had like a certain dress style. We could wear whatever we wanted. It just still had to be like within the uniform. Like it didn't have to be the same colors or anything, but it had to be like, you had to wear button ups, or like polo shirts, or like the same style of clothing that you would have had, but it could be like plaid, or it could be like just no jeans. Like you could have like maybe brown slacks, or like, you know, but it was back when like cargo, like those cargo khakis from like Urban or Union Bay, and like Old Navy and Miller's Outpost. It was back when like those kind of khakis, and the pants, like with the cargo pants with the, I don't know, like it had some like metal little hardware, little like buttons and snaps and zippers and stuff. But back when those were kind of getting popular, so they did have a lot of options that weren't jeans, that were kind of like slacks types of things, or just not jeans, that you could wear with like a nicer top, and just like we could wear sneakers, or just like nicer shoes, and you know, so we kind of looked like a little bit nicer. Like we weren't allowed to wear like t-shirts, or like, unless we were playing like PE stuff, or unless we got permission, we couldn't wear like t-shirts or jeans. And then for chapel, I would usually just wear what I would wear for church when I was older, versus when I was younger, we had like the school uniform that was chapel dress. At an older stage, it was like the middle age stage, it was like a skirt that was plaid, and then younger than that, it was like a jumper that was plaid, like the same plaid pattern that the skirt was. And then once you got in like 9th and 10th grade, you could kind of just wear the other style of clothing, that was like not exactly the uniform colors, but it was like, okay, chapel dress, you had to wear like church clothes, and then like, yeah, but you couldn't like change throughout the day, and had to just wear that. And like, yeah, but so I think other than like chapel dress, it kind of helped to be able to kind of wear whatever I wanted. And I think it maybe didn't hit me too much until I was about age, let me see. So yeah, I was probably in 9th or 10th grade when I started making a little more of my own clothing style decisions, because, and like I mentioned, like 3rd grade, 4th grade, we didn't really have the uniforms, but I was still such a young kid. Like I kind of knew what kind of fit and what kind of style I liked, but I still would wear like ribbons and bows and like all that kind of stuff. By the time I was in 9th grade choosing my own like clothing and stuff, I wasn't wearing like bows or anything like that. I would still wear the church stuff though, because like there was not really a way that I could really get around that. And then this was like, like, when was this? Yeah, this was like around 9th grade. Yeah, when I started choosing my own clothing. And you know, it was a little more apparent that I was kind of choosing more mask type clothing. But also a lot of the kids I saw at school were the same ones I saw at church, were the same ones I saw at the sports league on Sundays. And so it was like weekdays and then Saturdays and Sundays, I'd still see a lot of the same people. Unless they were like my neighborhood kids, I still saw like a lot of the same overlapping people. And so there wasn't really a lot of wiggle room in my social life to be like, okay, I wear this around these people and I don't wear that around these other people. It was more like I was pretty consistent, I would say. But I think mostly because of like 5th grade through like 8th grade, I was wearing the school uniform. I think maybe people might not have fully noticed. Like, I still didn't buy the like female cut of clothing. I didn't wear like I wore a little bit of like, those kind of flare pants and stuff like that. And like, but it was still kind of like my own style of it. It was still kind of like a more mask kind of style. I still wore it with like t-shirts. I didn't really wear blouses and things like that. And if I did, it was kind of like, it was usually like a female blouse, like from the female section, like blouses, but they were kind of like, I would buy them bigger or like wear ones that looked like less ruffly or less like weird little like patterns and stuff. I picked like the more mask cool looking ones. And then, yeah, I think, because it's not all about clothing, but I'm just thinking about my own like comfort. Like, it was more like I didn't start getting pretty comfortable with how I dressed until probably like closer to like grad school, honestly, where I just knew nobody. And at the interview and stuff, I was still wearing like female, like presenting kind of like a pantsuit, and I was in better shape, so there were a lot more options of like things I could buy that kind of like I didn't have to worry about curves and hips and all that kind of stuff, because I didn't really have a lot of that quite a few years ago. So that was kind of like a different experience too. And then when it came to sorry, I'm totally blanking. Eventually it kind of came to like outside of clothing, kind of thinking about like, like I mentioned, the types of people I hung out with, the kind of clothing I wore. I don't know if it really hit me, because I always was under the impression when I was younger that like, okay, this is a phase, I'm gonna grow out of it. Like, I was kind of taught that often, so I would think, this is a phase, I'm gonna grow out of it. And there were kind of, like I mentioned, there were kind of stages in our life, because of the school and stuff like that, where you kind of like dressed differently or did PE differently or whatever, or used different bathrooms. So I think grades K through 4 used like the little kid bathrooms outside. Then there were some indoor nicer bathrooms that had like a locker room with showers and everything, that were for like the older kids. And I think it was grades 5 through 10 that used those bathrooms. But then the 5th and 6th graders still had their own PE. So grades 5 through 6 had their own kind of PE. And then once you're in 7th grade, 7 through 10 had their own PE that was like, you had an actual PE uniform. Like, you had to dress down and change into the actual PE attire. And you were expected to shower afterwards, like, but we didn't, because it was a really conservative school, and the showers were very open. Like, they didn't have curtains or anything, and we just had like a white t-shirt with the school name, and then like blue shorts, and you were allowed to wear like a blue sweatsuit over it. If you were like cold or something, you could wear like sweatpants or sweater over it if it's like cold or whatever. Like, you didn't have to wear shorts, but yeah, you had to wear the colors and stuff, because we still had to have a uniform. And so yeah, grade 7 through 10 dressed down. And I remember that being like, in my mind, I was like, when I was younger, I was like, okay, once I'm in 5th and 6th grade, because that was considered like the older grades. I was thinking like, okay, I'll be more femme when I'm like in maybe 5th or 6th grade. And then like that never happened. And then I was like, okay, well, once I start using like the real locker room and like the gym and stuff, I'll feel more femme, and I want to be more femme. And I remember that was an interesting phase in my life, grades 7 through 10. I don't think 10th grade, I don't think I had PE in 10th grade. Or maybe I did. I just can't remember. I don't think I did. But I remember definitely 7, 8, 9 we did. And then, like, because the school only went up to 10th grade, that's why I keep saying 10th grade. Because it was a junior academy. So it was only went up to, like, you had to start your junior year elsewhere, junior, senior year. So grade 7, 8, 9, possibly 10. I had PE, had to dress down after, before PE, put on the PE uniform, meaning that, like, you're expected to use the locker room. I don't think I wore, like, a bra at that time in my life. I think I was still kind of, like, anti-bra, I think. Or that was 6th grade going into 7th grade. But I remember it was either my 7th grade year after I'd already been dressing down for like a year, or it was my 8th grade year. But I remember specifically, I was like, this is the year I'm going to start wearing, I think it was 7th grade. I was like, this is the year I'm going to start wearing a bra because I have to go in the locker room and I can't just be like free balling it, kind of like. So I was like, social pressure, like my mom was trying to get me to wear one since I was probably like in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I didn't need one anyways, but I never wore it. And then like I was like, shoot, I kind of have to wear a bra. And so finally I started to wear it. I mean, it wasn't even like anything. It was like so small, like it was just like, it was there, but like it wasn't like holding anything. I didn't have like anything really going on. So like I was a pretty thin kid, and because I was athletic too, I didn't really have a lot of fat parts or anything. So like I didn't really have a lot of like a figure when I was that age. So even 7th grade, I don't think I really needed a bra till maybe like 8th grade or so. But I remember I did start wearing one because of PE, and I remember that was not fun. It wasn't comfortable. I remember like changing in the stalls, because there were like bathroom stalls with like the toilets and then sinks in front of those, and then there was like the actual locker room where you had your locker. And so I would kind of dress down in the toilets and like kind of make it seem like, okay, I have to use the bathroom anyway, so let me just change real quick while I'm in here. And I did that, and it was fine, and I didn't really mind. But there were some older kids that were kind of like a little bit like, oh, like you freshmen, like they kind of treat us like they thought that we were like freshmen, but we were like 7th grade, 8th grade, and they were like 9th grade, 10th grade. So they were actual high school students, and we were actually still technically junior high students, but they divided it out that way. So it was almost like it was almost like the freshman and sophomore grades were like the juniors and seniors technically of like a high school, but they weren't done with high school yet, and we were just coming in to their space. But we were junior high age, so it's like it's not even like we were even all in high school, and we were kind of younger, a lot younger, like maturity wise, puberty wise, and everything. And so I had a few friends that were like females, like one particular that was kind of like a mass kind of female, and we had been friends since like 3rd grade. We were like really, really good friends, still are very good friends. She's in the Coast Guard, shout out. And then I don't know, back then she was kind of interesting, because she's kind of like more shy, but she kind of isn't, like, and a lot of her is like competitive, like she's more competitive than I am in a lot of ways. And so even though she's more shy, she would kind of like push herself with a lot of things more than I would. So like with sports, I just liked sports for the sake of the sports. I was never really like super competitive or anything. Sometimes I had some games where I was like really competitive, but I overall just like the sport for the sake of it, just to like hang out with my friends, and all my friends kind of were dudes that played sports, so that's what I did too. So I really liked sports. I learned to like them. I liked athletic stuff. And it wasn't like a pain to do it because I was doing it all the time. So it didn't feel like a workout. It was like I could play 3 full games of soccer like on a Sunday and just wake up and go to school the next day. Like it wasn't like an issue. Like now it's like if I even try to do one, I'll be sore for like a couple days after that. So, we were pretty consistent because we did PE every day, Monday through Thursday. We ran a mile at the least every day, and then played sports. And then I would play sports when I had recess. I would play sports during lunchtime. I would play sports on Sundays. Sometimes even after school with friends, I would play sports. So it's kind of like I was pretty involved with like playing sports and stuff like on a pretty regular basis. But I do remember that experience of like 7th grade and starting to wear a bra, and then like I think, yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like it just was like, that's when I could definitely tell I was fighting against this. Like I was like, dude, this sucks. There's nothing I can really do about having this like feminine thing that I have to deal with that I don't like. Like, I didn't wear a bra when my mom wanted me to, because, like, earlier on, because I just couldn't identify with it. I was like, no, I don't want to have to wear one of those. I remember when I was a kid, always, like, when because I would, like, I don't know when I thought about it, but I remember I would, like, start praying to God, like, please don't let me get my period. Please don't let me start my period. Like, I remember being really young, praying like that, just being like, please God, don't let that happen, like I don't want to start it. I don't want to, like, because that's another stage of like, okay, a female thing that you have to deal with, like, and I was just like, even like once that even started, and then I was like, like pads and tampons and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, like not too like confident. Like my mom would buy them for me up until, I don't even know, probably through high school. Maybe I started buying them in like college. I mean, I must have, but I lived at home for a couple of years of college too, so it's like she may have just bought them when I was there too. But I remember most of the time when I was living at home anyways, like she would buy them. Like she would do the grocery shopping anyways, and she would just buy them, and it was always the same ones. And like she would always remind me, like, hey, did you bring something? Like she would like track like my cycle and be like, did you bring something with you? And then I remember my brother being there. Like she didn't like say like specifically like, hey, you're gonna get your period soon or whatever. Like she would kind of just like say it like, did you remember to bring something with you? And I was like, yeah. Like, but I remember always being like annoyed by her asking, and then like, but at least it's like, I mean, I do think, she wasn't like being like purposely embarrassing, but it's kind of like, you don't want your kid leaving the house without something like that. And then it's like, you might have an embarrassing situation come up when you're like out with your friends or something. So it's like, at least she kind of like made sure, but I was pretty good at like tracking it too. So I don't think I ever like forgot them. And I had cargo pants and stuff, so I just stick them in my pockets or whatever. And like that always became an issue too, because I didn't like carrying purses. And I remember being at church, and I was like, at a certain point I had to carry a purse because of periods and stuff. I was like, well, I gotta keep these somewhere, and my dresses didn't have pockets. And so I remember there was a point where I would I would actually take pads and because at this point I used to wear pantyhose when I was like younger, because like whatever, like I was like properly church dressed, like old school style, okay? And I would basically take, how the pantyhose, like you have your underwear and you have like the pantyhose that go like over it. And so I would take the like a few pads, and I would stick them in the front part of like my underwear, because like they're not going anywhere. I'm not like playing sports or jumping or running around. I'm literally just like sitting there, and I'd have like spare ones like tucked in, and then I was like, eventually when I got a little older, I started carrying a purse, and I still never really vibed fully with that. But it's like, I had my car and my car keys and a wallet and like all this other stuff where I was like, I can't just shove everything inside of my like skirt, inside of my underwear or stuff. Like I was like, I gotta have like something that's okay. And I remember one of my other friends used to just carry a backpack everywhere. And she didn't get a purse till she was a little bit older too. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of the same reason. Like the purse that she got was like a Dickies purse, and it was just like the most mask looking purse you could ever see, which I get, because I'm like, fuck, if you have to carry one, I mean, just carry one you like. Mine was like I think it was like Jordish or something like that, and it was pretty similar. Like it wasn't like pretty or anything, and I'd had it for like absolute years. I think I bought it when I had to go to like a wedding and I didn't have pockets for anything. But I think I knew I was gonna get a period or something, and I was gonna be like out of town. And I think I literally, when I went and bought like shoes and stuff, I had to buy like a purse. And so I had that purse for like years before I had even like actually like used it. And then I started using it at church. And then I just kind of stopped going to church. And then I started wearing, well, after I stopped going to church, but like I wore, like at a certain point I started wearing like pantsuits to church. And so I would just pick pants that had pockets in them so I could put my stuff in my pockets. And so yeah, that was just annoying. I always found periods annoying. I always found shopping for, menstrual related things annoying. Shopping for underwear to be annoying. Shopping for bras to be annoying. There were just so many things that were just like, I don't want to be in this section of the store. I don't want to be buying this stuff. But it was kind of like, certain stuff, you can't just have your boobs just like bouncing all over the place and like your nipples all everywhere, and you can't be just like bleeding all over. Like you kind of have to like manage it somehow. So it was like, I remember that not being easy, and I would still honestly say it's not like one of my favorite kind of things. Like, I mean, it's always like an interesting experience for me because I have like mask trans friends, mask female friends, like lesbian friends, a lot of like kind of like butch type, female friends. Not all of them are like that, but it's like some of them are. And I always find it to be like an interesting thing if one of those friends is like, hey, like, can you bring me like a couple tampons or something? It's like, cool, I got you. But it's like, it's still kind of awkward for me, and I'm just like, this is awkward. Like, it's like, but it's like, we're old now in our 30s, like, clearly, if we're getting periods, we're getting periods. Like, there's nothing you can really do about it at this point. So you kind of just own up to the fact that, like, this is what your body does. But it's not fun. I still don't like it. Honestly, that's something I don't like. But it's something I know, like, I'll tell my friends if, like, I've got cramps, or, like, or like if I have a guy friend who's like, oh, let's go to the beach, like, do you want to go this weekend or next? And I'll be like, let's go next weekend. I got my period this weekend. Like, like, whatever. Like, we're all adults. It's not like, I mean, it would be almost maybe a little strange if I didn't have that happening, like, because my health is just like regular, like, average health. Like, I don't have any kind of like abnormal type or extreme or like outlier types of things with my physical health. So I mean, not necessarily, but I mean, as in like I get periods, I had puberty, like that kind of thing. Like, things are kind of just like going as they averagely would go. I know some people don't get them. I know, I'm not like knocking it for people who don't or who want them or whatever. I don't want them. I'm just saying, it's just me. I don't want them. I don't care for them. I don't enjoy it. But that was kind of something that, I had to kind of learn to kind of like navigate, because it's just, like, I really do remember thinking, like, in my mind, like, okay, when I hit 7th grade and I start changing in the locker room, I'm going to wear a bra. And when I get my period, I'm going to feel more feminine, and I'm going to like suddenly like dresses, and like, I'm going to act like I'm going to buy makeup and care about all this stuff. I never ever cared. I actually cared more to not ever like, like the most recent time that I cared at all for makeup, the most recent time that I ever cared at all for it was maybe 2 years ago, when I wore like traditional face paint for like some traditional garb I was wearing. I did that a couple times, maybe two times in a row, last year, this year. And then I think it was maybe last year or the year before, when I went on a date with the trans woman who was like really into like heels and makeup and stuff like that. And then we went out on a date to a movie, and she was like, yeah, I want to go shopping for makeup after this. Like, let's go to like Macy's and look at the makeup and stuff. And I was kind of like, I have no idea, like, any of this stuff. Like, that's like way out of my alley. But yeah, I mean, she was cool. I liked hanging out with her. We had a good time in the movies, and like, she was really sweet. And then, she was kind of like, she was kind of like, I'm debating if I should say something or not. There's something that I have on my mind that I'm like, I don't know if I should say this. I'm thinking about it. Okay, so I'm gonna skip that. So basically she wanted to go look at makeup, and then that's the only time when I remember like, oh yeah, like let's go look at the makeup kind of thing, like. And so we never did that, but I mean, I was down to go look at it because she wanted to do it. And I'm like, yeah, like, we're at the mall, let's go check out the makeup, like, I didn't really care, about it. I wasn't going to buy any or anything like that, but, I kind of told her, like, I would look at it because that's what she was interested in, and, like, certain stores looking at certain clothes because that's what she was interested in. But other than the fact that she was interested in it and she was kind of, like, looking for like things that were cute for her, I wasn't really like interested in it for myself. I was just like thinking like, oh, like what if she wants to like try it on or whatever. Like I was kind of down for that. Like if you want to like play dress up or whatever in the mall, like I was totally down for the cause. I was like, this sounds like fun. I was a little disappointed that we couldn't really do it because it became like a really uncomfortable situation, unfortunately. But I mean, just because other people made it uncomfortable for us, so we kind of just eventually just left the mall. But that's the only time I really, other than the face paint, that's the only time I ever really cared about makeup of any kind. And it wasn't even because of me, it was other people. I remember like my grandma or great grandma sent me some lip gloss before. I had some gay male friends that wore lip gloss, but I never really wore lip gloss. I think I tried it before, and I think when I was really young, probably like 5, 6, 7 years old, my aunt used to paint my nails like the clear nail polish, and I used to kind of like that. But no, otherwise, I never had a desire for any of that kind of stuff. It just didn't feel like me, really. That's mostly what it was. It didn't really feel right. It felt like this is for somebody else. And I've explained this before, that like the best explanation I can give is as if I'm wearing like a Pikachu costume, and it's not Halloween, or I'm not like a prop, or I'm not like, it would be like if my friends invite me out to the club and I show up in a Pikachu onesie or something. It's kind of like a little out of place. That's kind of how I feel when I wear like femme clothes, like dresses and stuff like that. And especially because people react so like wild about it, because I never really do it, and I feel like an idiot. But I mean, I literally feel like you would feel if you were trying to go to like a nice dinner, or like look nice, or like go somewhere fun and like dress up a little bit, and then here you are wearing like a Pikachu outfit, or like a pumpkin, or like a snowman outfit, or like a Santa Claus thing. Like, it kind of like, okay, like this feels like a joke. It feels like it's not even like me. But then there are other people in life that are kind of like, they want me to do that. They want me to look that way. And I'm like, don't you realize this doesn't even seem natural? Like, when you see me dressed like that, and then you see me walking around and like talking and stuff like that, and my mannerisms, it's like, do I seem like this fits my personality? Like, it doesn't. And when I was younger too, I remember feeling like the interesting part about hanging out with guys all the time was, like I was mentioning, like I'm still pretty sensitive, and I always was. But I did kind of like get a little on the tougher side, just because I was hanging out with guys more, and like I kind of picked up some more of their kind of traits. And then later on, I kind of backed off of that, because it was more of like the religion I was into. Like, people were really kind of like defensive and judgmental, and kind of like sarcastic, and like it was really hard to like be open and vulnerable with people. Like, it wasn't really like a thing, because people would betray each other. There was a lot of backstabbing and gossiping and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't fully like that. Like, you could trust people, but it was like, I kind of learned that it's hard to trust people. So I honestly still have issues with that. But I mean, I just noticed that I just kind of left it, right? So that was one thing that was interesting for me, because I was just like, oh my gosh, like I had a lot of like male friends that were kind of like masked kind of male friends, jock kind of guys, and here I am like, hey, let's talk about our feelings. And like that's kind of when I realized, like, and I was pretty young when I was doing this, and that's kind of when I realized, like, hey, when you're with the boys and you're playing karate, or when you're with the boys and you're building a machine, or you're playing guns, like nobody wants to talk about their feelings. Like I would be like sitting there reminiscing and trying to like have these like intimate conversations, and they're just like jumping on each other and like jumping off the sprinklers and like, you know, doing all kinds of like wild stuff, while I'm just like, let's sit and talk, guys. Like, so there was that part of me that kind of liked the let's sit down and talk and chat and have like these little secret conversations and stuff. I got that more with like the kind of, I don't want to call them nerdier guys, but like I had some sensitive guy friends that we would it was kind of an interesting dynamic, because they weren't athletic, they weren't sporty, they weren't really femme really, but they were like sensitive guys that didn't really do a lot of athletic competitive kind of stuff. So I vibed with them, and usually that's kind of how I kind of talked to them more, and we kind of had our little like intimate conversations. Like I wasn't talking to them about girls or anything, but we'd kind of have like deeper conversations and sit and talk and like, you know, have our lunches like sitting down, and like we weren't like in a rush to go play basketball or whatever. And then sometimes I just like be like, I don't want to hang with them, I want to go play basketball with the guys who were like good, or I wanted to go play basketball with the people who weren't that good, but then just wanted to play sports and not like sit around and talk about my feelings. So it was kind of like I did kind of have both, but I realized early on that that's kind of something I realized I didn't really notice. It was like maybe like a gender kind of masculine feminine kind of thing. I just knew that like, how come none of my guy friends want to like ever sit and have like a personal conversation about anything? And then I realized, like, when I started getting into the field that I'm in, working, there are a lot of more sensitive guys that tend to be in this field. So I do have a lot of cis male straight friends that we literally will sit and like talk about our feelings and stuff all the time, and that's kind of nice too. So it's because for some reason I'm actually more comfortable talking about certain stuff with guys, like not so much with females. Like there are a couple female friends that I have that I'm a little bit more like, all right, like I'll tell you about this kind of stuff, but it's still kind of awkward for me, because like it's hard for me to talk to straight women about girls, and it's hard for me to talk to gay guys about girls, and it's hard for me to talk to straight guys about girls. Like it's kind of like one of these things that's like, you know, if I'm dating women, it's still kind of something that's kind of hard for me to just like talk about who I'm dating and that kind of thing. That's kind of a hard thing for me, just because it's like I don't really know. And you know, with cis straight men, the main reason why it's uncomfortable for me for sometimes, and I'm comfortable with guys I know. If I know a guy and we vibe and we're good and we like get along good and I trust them, and I have a lot of guy friends that are like that, I can talk to them a lot more easily about like, you know, sexuality and that kind of stuff. But I find it a little hard because I've had a lot of guys that are cis straight men that are very like fetishizing about it, and so they might not know that I date women or something like that, and then like they kind of like, because like if I never said it, but I mean I think it's kind of obvious, but I mean like maybe I never said it or something and they just don't assume, and then they notice somehow, or they know about it some way or another, and then, you know, when I start trying to talk to them about like if I went on a date, and then they're like, oh, how big were her tits, and like all this kind of like, oh, do you want a threesome, and like all this kind of stuff that's just like, Jesus, like here we go. But I mean, that to me just makes me not really want to talk to them, and it makes me want to shut down more about it. But I mean, otherwise I'm okay talking to my cis male straight friends about, you know, relationships and things. And it can be a little hard to talk to cis straight females about relationships. It's kind of like, I don't like objectify women and things like that, but I feel like I've gotten some sarcastic kind of remarks from and I'm telling you guys, like, this is, I talk about, venting about this kind of stuff sometimes because, like, I'm a bit of a sensitive person. So, like, sometimes I get bothered by things that maybe aren't really an actual issue, that don't really bother anybody else. But to me, it's kind of like, I would rather that didn't happen that way. And so, yeah, there are times when I'm kind of like, if I have a crush on somebody or something like that, it's hard for me to really, like, talk to anybody specific about it. I have a couple friends that talk to me about relationships. They kind of have, like, an interest in my life on that level. And it's easier for me when people ask me about it, but it's like, I find it a little bit challenging when I have, like, cis female straight friends that are kind of like they think I objectify women or something. It's kind of like I remember I remember when I was like, because okay, so I don't really explain things to people too detailed if because I have a lot of different groups of people that I might hang around, right? So say, for example, I have my main group of friends. I have some close cis straight women friends. We're really close. We get along really good. We're close friends. We're good buddies. And then, like, I might talk to them about some private things or some personal information or some kind of, like, thing about, like, I don't, like, tell them, like, details about stuff that I do, but I mean, I'll tell them, like, oh, like, I had a date and I really like this person and all this kind of stuff. And then I remember this one, because I'll date people, if somebody wants me to be exclusively dating them and have, like, a whole monogamous situation together with them, if that's what they need and we're vibing and I want that too, then I'll go for that too. But I don't necessarily have to have an exclusive monogamous relationship with somebody. So a lot of times when I'm dating people, I might just date one person, and especially when it's casual, I might just be dating a couple people. And so my friend, because I was saying I'm dating someone here and then have a date up in another city and where family lives, and I'm gonna, like, crash with the family for, like, the weekend and then go out on this date and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, like, she was singing that song, like, I got hoes in different area codes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I would never call them hoes. Like, I would never say that, And, like, I kind of, like, outed myself with the whole conversation because, like, I was like, oh, I got a date, but I didn't really say, like, who I was going on dates with. I didn't say genders. And then she's like, oh, she was saying that I got hoes in different area codes. And I was like, I would never call women hoes, And then one of my other friends was like, oh, yeah, like, I don't use words like bitches and hoes and things like that. And I was like, okay. Like, but I was kind of just like, I think a lot of people don't know that I'm not straight too, which is kind of interesting. And I think it confuses people too, because, like, on occasions I'll go on dates with like, trans guys and, like, non-binary people and people who identify with pronouns like he, him. And so when I'm dating somebody or going out on dates with somebody, I know in the past I have said, like, even, like, he or him, or this guy, or I went on a date with this guy, but I don't really think I need to always be telling people, oh yeah, I went on this date with this guy and he's trans. And, like, I feel like it's not really my place to, like, say all that. So sometimes it gets a little awkward for me, and I am a little bit on the secretive side when I date people, just as a protection for them, because I don't want to be, like, this gossipy person that's just, because I've had a bad experience before when I, like, told somebody else, like, someone else's, like, gender identity information, and that was fine, but then, like, someone else overheard it and then was kind of, like, jumping on this person that I was introducing to some other people, was kind of like, oh, like, you're trans and, like, or non-binary or, like, whatever, and, like, all this kind of stuff that's like, okay, like, you don't even know them and you're, like, being totally rude and disrespectful. So I was really kind of, like, from that point, I was like, maybe I just shouldn't say anything. And then, if I do introduce this person to my friends or other social circles, then I'll let them talk for themselves and say who they are. But then it can also create a really kind of odd situation if I go on a date with somebody and I'm just like talking to someone who maybe I don't know too well, who's like, oh, have you gone on any dates lately? And I'm like, yeah, I went on a date with this guy. But if it's like a trans guy or something like that, and I don't really say that, and then say if I talk to this person in another group of friends and they're like, oh, how's that guy you were dating? And then the other friends know that I usually date females or something. They might be like, wait, you're dating guys? Like, it's kind of like, it just gets a little tricky sometimes. And it's not like a problem. It's just, it's hard because like, I like my privacy. I like my space. I like to respect other people's privacy and their personal information. But then it's kind of like, I also don't want to be like lying or people assuming things. Like people do, like that's why people sometimes early on have assumed that I'm a straight cis type person, because of the way I talk when I'm talking about dating and stuff. If I happened to have gone on a date with a trans guy and then they happen to ask me about dating and then I don't tell them about the trans identity or anything like that. And so it's kind of like, that can be confusing and it doesn't feel too authentic to me to just be like, so a lot of times when I'm dating somebody, I just say they and I just say them and I just don't say anything about the pronouns unless it's like, I know it's like a cis female and I feel comfortable talking to this person that I'm explaining about a date and I can comfortably talk to them, then I'll say, oh yeah, like she. But otherwise I usually just say they. And it doesn't matter what the other person identifies as. Usually I don't name drop and I usually just say they, just to keep it vague, so that if, for example, I do introduce a friend to somebody I've gone on dates with, they can talk to them themselves and just learn the information that they, about all their sexuality and gender if they choose to share that. And and then for me, I don't feel like, oh, I was lying and I was saying he all this time and this person was assuming like, to see something else, and then this person is, like, I don't know. It just gets a little confusing about how to really address that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do find it kind of hard to talk about dating for that reason, because it's like I can't just talk about like, oh yeah, I went on a date with this girl and it was fun. Like there's always like all these other layers attached sometimes too, because it's like, and that's kind of a hard thing to bring up with like either like my cis male straight friends or my cis female straight friends or like non-queer type friends. It's kind of hard to like talk to them about my dating life because there's all these other things that they never really have to like address. And I remember one of my friends too, who's kind of like an ally and she's still kind of like learning about some sexuality related stuff. And I remember telling her like, yeah, when I go out on dates with people, we have like this whole conversation about like gender identity and all this kind of stuff and like all the dynamics and stuff involved. Like usually, because on my end there's usually going to be stuff that comes up, so it's kind of like there's certain little things like say for example, like if I'm in a club or something, I don't really mind like females like grinding up on me, like from their back butts and stuff like that. Like I don't really mind that, but I kind of don't want, there's certain things I don't want. Like, I don't know. Like, in public, there's certain stuff I don't really want. I kind of want to keep, like this kind of mask-presenting kind of identity. And so, I appreciate it more when females kind of, like, notice that and kind of, like, aren't, like, kind of like, I guess I'd call it emasculinating in a lot of ways, like when females aren't emasculinating. And I do have a cis straight female friend that I do find is a little bit on the emasculating side. She kind of does that, which is kind of not something I appreciate, but it's kind of like she does get like nervous and has anxiety and has a lot of like kind of like she can be a little not forceful but a little boisterous, about things, and she's offended some of my other friends unfortunately a little bit sometimes too, and like but we all have had our stress times in our lives that we have all been kind of on a different level than we needed to be, and I'm very forgiving about things, and I love my friends and everything, so I'm not really saying, I'm just saying from my own experience, sometimes I'm like sometimes I don't like how she treats me in front of my guy friends. It's kind of like, it feels a little bit weird, but it's kind of like, I don't know. She's, I don't know. But she's great, though. But things like that, when people are a little bit emasculating or, like, trying to be, like, competitive or, like, like, aggressive. Like, I haven't really come across a lot of, like, kind of butch, like, female lesbian types that are kind of like in your face, like, because you're kind of masked and just kind of like trying to like step to you or whatever, or like trying to act a little more like aggressive or anything. Like, I haven't come across that, but I've kind of heard about it a little bit, but I'm not really that way. I'm not that way. I'm protective of my cis female friends for sure, and other female friends for sure. I do notice that about myself, that I'm kind of like, I'll walk them to their cars. I'll, make sure that they're good. Like I mean, I'm not anything. I'm not like a big person. I'm not a fighter. There's nothing like that. But I do kind of feel a little bit. There are times when I notice I do feel a little bit protective. And so, I mean, I'm like that with all my friends. But I mean, there are some times that I do notice, like, I do kind of take that protective role a little bit too sometimes. So it is a little just challenging to, like, to address. It can definitely be a little challenging, but I mean, we're all in this, right? We all have our own takes on things and our own experiences with stuff, and some of the stuff is fine. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of challenge to try to, like, understand or accept it or do anything specifically with it. It's just, that's just kind of how we are. But yeah, there are things, I mean, I feel like I do kind of say a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again, but that's kind of why I wanted to bring in that episode a little bit, by Ashley Gavin, episode number 91, because they were talking about some things that I found really valuable to listen to, and I'm hoping if you guys do give it a listen, and I'll post a link in the description, I hope that you guys like it, and that maybe, if it's not too problematic of a thought process, you can kind of like reflect on your own life and see kind of what you kind of thought, and I just found it super validating to hear these people talking, especially like adult females, adult non-straight people talking about their own stories, because it's like a lot of times we get the stories from the Hollywood perspective or the straight perspective that's like, oh, this is what gay life must be like, and it's always talking about themes that are like the themes that they want to talk about. And I've never heard, that's the first time I've actually heard people talking about gender related stuff in a way that's like, oh yeah, like that does happen, like I've had an experience like that. Yeah, I remember being a kid and like thinking some way about some gender related thing that other people around me just didn't seem to like think that same way, or like other females around me weren't really thinking like that, or the boys I used to hang out with didn't seem to really think like I did, or like I was like noticing these differences with like gender related stuff and masc and femme related stuff, and kind of like the binary related kind of situations that come up in life. I was kind of realizing more of that, but I kind of just pushed a lot of it to the side and just lived my life. But it's hard to really hear. It's hard to really I really talk. I really um um yeah, I kind of really like talk about it um a little bit more in this episode, and some other episodes I brought up some stuff too, but it's like usually I don't really talk about this kind of stuff. It is kind of personal, but it's also something that like a lot of people just don't discuss. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, I'm willing to like share it, and a lot of the people who are in my life, who I grew up with, I mean, I'm pretty sure they know because they were there all the time, for like multiple years in my life, and a lot of them are still there. So a lot of them we interact and stuff, and so I don't know. It's not like they don't know. It's not like I've gone some inconsistent route. I do remember being at a gay club, and there was this twink kind of like dancing on the bar, like as part of like he was like a go-go dancer. It was like part of his job. There's like a bar that goes like around like the interior ring of like this place, and he was like on there. There were like poles and different kind of stuff, and he was like dancing on there like shirtless, I think. And I remember sending this little video clip to one of my cis male straight church friends, and he was just like, "You're a freak," kind of thing. Like, but he didn't notice it's a gay guy, it's a gay bar. um it just looked like, oh, you're taking some pictures of some half naked man. But to me, I was trying to be like, because I think my friend texted me and was like, "What are you up to?" or like whatever, and I just like sent him that little video clip because that's what I was doing at the moment, was watching the guy dancing and just like chilling with some friends. And yeah, I was like, okay, like, but me and him have always had this relationship of like, he's the one that I was saying that I used to watch that K-Rock, or listen to that K-Rock, Dr. What did I say his name was? Dr. Drew. I think they had Loveline too. I think it was called Loveline, but I think it was a show too. I think it was on like TV too, but they had like like an anonymous like screen where people would go behind it or something and talk about like some sexuality thing or some kind of sex problem, or like it was just kind of a sex related kind of questions and ask the doctor kind of thing. But he was like an older man, and he was really appropriate, but then there was always like this comedian guy in the background who was like joking and like making fun of everybody. So I just found that interesting that, yeah, me and that friend used to listen to that kind of stuff, and we were like pretty open about it. But I just found that interesting. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there are a lot of things that I think people kind of assume. I don't really think, it's kind of interesting that there are a lot of people I know that just never ask me much about dating or relationships or anything like that. Like, I have some childhood friends that know that like I go to all these pride festivals and stuff. I have these other friends a couple friends who know kind of like who I date and stuff, but that's not like everybody. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe all this kind of stuff, but I'm just trying to describe it in a way that kind of makes sense, because that's just kind of how geez, like how I've been feeling about stuff, how I've been, experiencing things in life lately. It's been interesting to hear somebody say something on a podcast or on a YouTube video that was like something I could resonate with, and not even the exact stories, but just something gender related that's like, yes, like I had some kind of experiences related to gender too, that you know, just I just it just happened, and I just left and just moved on with life, and like it never really came up in conversation. It's not really something that people really talk too much about in my social circles anyways. More and more so now, yes, but not too much. And then yeah, like I remember I've mentioned before, the last thing I'm gonna say, yeah, I've mentioned before how I would go in my bathroom when I was a kid, and like after the shower I'd have like this hair, yeah, I kind of like identified more with like Mowgli kind of a look, like kind of a skinny kid, dark skin, dark kind of like scraggly hair. And you know, I liked that look for myself. I was like, this is kind of ideal for me. This is kind of how I like to look. Is how I want to look, but I was like, this is way too mask. This is not something that, but I was comfortable with my body, with like everything. I was like, this looks fine to me. This is how I want to look. And then I come out of there, and then my mom would usually like braid my hair or something, where it was like, I just did it. I don't know how I really felt about it, but I remember at a certain point, like I didn't really like comb my hair too properly, or it wasn't like always like very well like groomed. When my mom stopped kind of doing my hair, and then I was kind of like getting dressed by myself more and like doing my own hair and stuff like that. I remember her being like frustrated with the fact that I didn't really take good care of it, and she threatened to just get my hair just kind of buzz cut off. She was like, I'm gonna have your dad take you to like a hair salon, and they're just gonna like cut off all your hair. And then I was like, okay. And I remember telling one of my friends that, like this same friend that I grew up with, that, you know, we had these like sexual kind of like conversations about Loveline and stuff like that. The church friend. Actually, I just talked to him today. It's his birthday. Shout out. Happy birthday. But yeah, he was saying, yeah, we were talking about snowboarding, that's what he called. But and weed. But yeah, he was saying, he was saying, shoot, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I remember I was kind of opening up to him about something, telling him how I was, how my mom was gonna cut my hair off, and like I was a little upset by it, and like he didn't really say anything, but you know, it was kind of like one of those things, because like I was like a mask presenting tomboy type female as a kid, but then like I still had these kind of feminine qualities that I tried to keep up to, and I think my hair was one of them. I kind of wanted longer hair at a certain point, because like, you know, at that age it's kind of like hair, beauty, you know, and you don't like being like misgendered, and so like it kind of helps to have like longer hair. So when I was thinking, oh, my mom's gonna cut off my hair, I was thinking like she's gonna try to like make me feel ugly or something like that. That was kind of like the impression I got, like her frustration with the fact that I wasn't really doing what I needed to do led her to be like, we're just gonna cut it all off. And now, which is an interesting thing, now I feel like I would want to cut off all my hair. Like that would be ideal almost. But then she was saying like, yeah, I'm gonna get someone to cut your hair, so that it would be like super short, so that I would just be able to manage it shorter and not have to like deal with the fact that, you know, I wasn't doing it right, or like that she wasn't combing it, or like I wasn't looking like beautiful or trying to like look pretty, you know, or anything, like look feminine or anything. I would just like throw my hair back in like a little small ponytail and didn't really try. And then I remember my dad took me to like a salon, and they did like a perm, a press, wash, all that kind of stuff. Well, the wash was before the press, obviously, but I mean, yeah, they did all this kind of stuff to it, and it looked, if you remember the singer Monica back in the day, I remember my brother being like, oh, it looks good, you look like Monica, like if you remember the singer like, who made that song, It's Just One of Those Days or whatever. And like she made some other songs with like Brandy, and like she was a good singer. But he was like, yeah, your hair's like Monica's. And then I remember pulling it back into a ponytail again or something. And then when my friend came over, he was like, oh, you did cut it all off, and then like I was like, no, it's just in a ponytail in the back. And he's like, oh, all right. But yeah, like experiences like that where I'm kind of just like, this is weird. Like, I don't think that this is like your classic female kind of like experience. But I'm not your classic female. And that just goes to show, like, if I even think about from third grade on, and even when I was younger than third grade, I can just say third grade because I remember I was at the private school for that amount of time from third grade on. But then from kindergarten to like to second grade, through second grade, I was kind of like, my parents were kind of dressing me. I wasn't really like picking my own clothes. I kind of just wore whatever. I don't think I really cared what I wore, femme looking stuff or whatever. I remember there were certain things I thought were cool that to me were like cool, but I never really like was given options of what I was wearing or whatever. Like, my parents didn't have all kinds of money to be like, go pick your wardrobe, and like, it was like, they would get clothes from where they get them, and I'd always just have clothes to wear, and like that was that. I never really thought much about it until I got a little bit older. Then it was like we would go shopping together as a family, and like, yeah, I didn't really get a whole lot of clothes growing up, but like my clothes weren't really like with holes and all this kind of stuff. Like, they were like when I was playing a lot of sports and like all that kind of stuff, but like we always had like new-ish, like new enough stuff, it wasn't like brand new, but it wasn't like super old either. And we did get like allowance and money and stuff like that, but I just didn't spend my money on like clothes. I mostly went to like movies and bought music and stuff like that. That was way more important to me as like a teen than like shopping for clothes. But I did shop for clothes on occasion, but it was kind of a stressful experience too, because I'd shop in the guys section, and then like I'd always have like the cashiers asking me like, oh, is this for your boyfriend? I'm like, nope, they're for me. Like, this is mine. Like, these are my clothes. It's just like, but I don't know. Yeah, shopping in stores has never been comfortable for me. It still kind of isn't, but thank God for online shopping, and now I have a little more privacy of what I buy underwear wise and whatever. I don't have to deal with like the stress of shopping inside of a store. But yeah, so I've enjoyed this longer recording. Sorry for the other one that didn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't know. Sometimes I just go a different direction, and so I don't know what I was doing with that, honestly. But I had a lot of different things on my mind to record about than what I had planned to record. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening.